The Queen Charge into LavaLoon is taking over Clash of Clans right now. It is the strongest and best attack strategy for you to use for 3 stars. It's very technical, so how do you do it? In this video we break down everything you need to know. Let's get into it. Alrighty guys, let's dive straight into this. We have FC Jonas taking on Optimus Prime. Now this attack really sets up the fundamentals for the Queen Charge Lalo. We've got a number of them from this war in order to teach you the different aspects of it. This one I feel really shows you the benefit that the Queen Charge has. Obviously there's a number of different ways to do Lalo. Guys, let me know in the comments which one you prefer the best. Sui Lalo, Queen Charge Lalo, Kill Squad Lalo, maybe Electron. There's so many different methods, but for the Queen Charge you basically need to set up the funnel either side. Now that can be relatively small as long as there are buildings to draw your queen in. As you can see in this case, we have the clan castle troops which are going down very easily, and again they draw our queen in. As with the enemy queen, as long as you can get access into the base, in this case using the wall wrecker. Obviously there's a number of different aspects to that. If you can use the wall breakers, you can then save onto the stone slammer for the LavaLoon portion. However, the wall wrecker does provide a bit of tankage for your queen. You've just got to be careful that anything inside there does not steal the healers. Now at this point we have so many expos pointing onto the queen, so you've got to pan out what will be attacking the queen when you are likely to have to press the ability, and when you are likely to have to use a rage spell. However, look at this bottom right hand side of the screen where the queen has been so successful in taking that out. So much damage that we can drive straight up towards the town hall. We do have to take out a multi-inferno here first, so that is swarmed very heavily with the balloons. But whenever you are using the Lalo and you are not taking out the town hall as part of your Queen Charge, you have to be using the Grand Warden. Now obviously that is relevant at Town Hall 12 if you're lower than that, because the Queen Charge into Lalo works at a number of different levels. Obviously you don't have to worry about the Town Hall, but at Town Hall 12 you have got to use that Grand Warden's ability, otherwise your balloons, unless they are full health, will go down, and even if they are full health they will be very severely damaged due to the Giga Bomb. If you can save onto any spells for the back end of the base, especially if there is splash damage, then it is advisable. Whether that be a freeze, a haste, maybe even a heal for the back end, depending on what splash damage there is, you've got to be able to save the balloons as they clump together. For this attack we have another brilliant demonstration of the value you want to try and get from the Queen Charge. Now as we move through the attacks we'll transition from the value of the Queen Charge into how to do the Lalo. But basically if you don't get the Queen Charge right, then the Lalo is not going to work anyway, or you'd be incredibly fortunate to adapt it. However, again, you've got to set up the funnel for your queen. Only a small one needed here because of the buildings drawing our queen in. So do think about that. Have you ever seen the bases where you have a huge gap before potentially a multi-inferno? That can be difficult for the queen to go in. It's easy for her to walk around the base, so think about how you're going to access her into the base if there are multiple buildings to draw her in. Then you've got to think about where can you use her in order to get most value. The Eagle Artillery should be a big defense on that list. Try and take it with the Queen Charge, but if not, it should be something you can easily access with the Lalo, ideally sooner rather than later. The enemy queen is another big one on the list. If you can get her with the Queen Charge, fantastic. If not, you've got to have a plan for her, but mostly you can use the Rage and Skelly spell combination in order to take her out mid-flight. If you also have 3 multi-infernos, that can be difficult for a Lalo, so try to take out at least one, in this case 2 of them with the queen charge. Also though, notice how this area of the base goes down, meaning again the pathing for the Lalo is just tremendous into this area. There's a lot of damage here, so we're coming in with lots of balloons through the different defenses, and it's all about being surgically initially. You might only have 3 to 4 balloons on a defense, but then they should clump together onto the multi, onto the town hall, be able to take it down quickly, and again the Grand Warden's ability is used to help them through that very successfully, and all of the splash is pretty much down at this point. Do think about merging the balloons together, because you've got to get that momentum where you're trying to one-shot a defense. So don't just think I need 3 balloons for this defense. See where they're going to clump, because as they got to the town hall and the multi, you wanted enough balloons there to just get them down ASAP. You didn't want them sitting there just hitting the loons. That's where the haste spells can be very helpful for that. You can see that the queen charge is still alive here, which if you can do that, you are onto a winner. As the queen is coming through one area of the base, try and get the Lalo to potentially come around the other side in order to protect the queen moving through to help you get some 3 stars. Hopefully a lot of similarities of the attacks are now starting to be apparent for you in terms of that queen charge. We'll start transitioning into talking more about the Lalo now, but do think about pathing with the queen charge, setting it up for the Lalo, and taking some of them key defenses we talked about as you do that. All of the attacks you see in this video are by crunch time in our CWL Elite victory over Cloud 21. If you're a maxed Town Hall 12 hoping to compete at that highest level, be sure to join my Discord. All of my social media platforms are linked in the description of this video, and you'll be able to find everything you need to know about joining crunch time. Interesting to note on this attack, we had a dragon and balloons within our clan castle. Reason for that is, as discussed in that first attack, you do not want your healers switching to, let's say, a P.E.K.K.A. You want them to stay on the queen because she can be vulnerable if not. If you don't know what's in that clan castle, if it's a fresh hit and you have a lava hound, a little pro tip that you will notice a lot of the pros do is when the lava hound pops, bring in a minion for the lava pups. Now what that does is basically help to take out them pups to protect the healers. Even if you lose one healer, that could be very vital moving through the base in order to protect that queen. So do think about the balloon coming in front as well. You'll often see a balloon in front of the healers in order to test for black bombs, and obviously it goes without saying, guys, the rage spell should just encompass the healers so that as the healers move forward they are still healing the queen. Now for the Lalo portion then, if the eagle has gone down already, which we've mentioned, the town hall should be your next focus you have to hit. Queen gets it in this case, but obviously you do need to try and get that early on so the Grand Warden's ability can be used to protect a lot of the balloons. If it's kind of a dodgy situation, what I mean by that is you might not get to that town hall, maybe don't deploy the slammer straight away. You can use that as a bit of a backup plan, but as long as you're flying into the town hall, you really shouldn't miss it. Again, you are hitting defenses on the outside of the base in order to then merge in with the main Lalo coming through. So what you don't want is balloons splitting up and moving all over the base, moving outside of the base, back into the base. You want to try and have that main push coming through and just slowly reinforce it with balloons on the outside of the base. But coming down to the end of it, ultimately your balloons will clump up. You actually want them to do that because as they start going down, again, it's all about momentum. You need the balloons to try and one-shot buildings. So you actually want them to clump up to a degree towards the end of the base, but do have a plan if there's any wizard towers, maybe a multi-inferno at the back end of the base. You should roughly know where the Lalo is going to end up. You're going to need a spell to deal with that, or we will discuss more methods in the next attack. FC Jonas was on fire this war. Another 3-star attack and another beautiful demonstration of the Lalo. Setting up that funnel either side, one of them troops should probably be your king because he can just basically take the entire side of the base down, and a baby dragon is good on the other side, but do take note of what's there. Maybe a P.E.K.K.A. is good. You want to be as cheap as possible, but you don't want to skimp on that funnel either. If your queen doesn't go into the base, then guess what? It is a huge problem. Notice what we are doing and what we are getting. Start taking mental notes now, and you should be able to recognize this yourself. Eagle Artillery is on that list. One multi-inferno is on that list, but also carving out this area of the base for the Lalo. One thing I haven't mentioned in relation to the Lalo, again we're going to start talking about that more now, is the sweepers. Look at where they are. So the Queen takes out one of them, the next one is pointing in this direction. You've got to think about that when your Lalo comes in. Are you going to hit that? Is it going to be pushing your balloons back? You want to try and fly behind sweepers if you can. But think about what we said last time. That would leave us hitting the town hall last if we were to fly in from the opposite direction. A little bit dodgy, so that's why the wall wrecker comes in here to try and help take out this top area alongside the Queen. That means that this entire section of the base is now gone. It's now very easy for the Lalo to come in and basically just sweep down that bottom section. The Queen gets onto the town hall. We know it's going to get down. Now, if it's a situation where it's a regular war, yes, you can just start the Lalo from the other side. The Queen might not get the town hall, and you're kind of taking a risk. But if it's clan war leagues, if it's a single attack format, the Lalo was waited there until we know we could then reinforce it from the opposite side. That's where being adaptable is obviously important depending on the type of war you're going up against. Look at the balloons just making their way through the center of the base, and we've got loons then coming into the side in order to keep that momentum through the middle. You do not want the loons starting to come outside the base then going back in. You've got some of them splitting one way and another. It gets very confusing. They all had one key movement through the base. This is a skill which is incredibly difficult to master. I struggle with it myself a lot. I am not a great Lalo attacker. Whilst I know the principles, I struggle with the deployment of it. But try and get that momentum and pathing through the base, and then your spells should be a lot easier to use alongside that. Let's talk about spells in this attack then. Let's try and focus a little bit more on that. Now, for any type of Lalo, you're going to want to commit your spells wisely. If it's a Sui Lalo, a hero dive, you might not even commit any spells to it. Then you've got all of them for the Lalo, but you've got to worry about pathing of the Lalo as well if you haven't really created that as much with the Sui Lalo. However, if you're doing a kill squad or a Queen charge, you're going to be committing some spells to that. Often that will be a jump spell, giving you access through the base. If you don't have to use the wall wrecker, save it. The slammer is incredible for taking out, let's say, a multi-inferno, getting there initially, but also then popping the balloons later on, potentially straight onto splash. So you might be using a jump spell. That's purely for access. Obviously, you're going to need 1 to 2 rage spells, depending on where you're getting in the base with the Queen. Have them rage spells, but do be sparing with them as well. Use them when they're needed, obviously, but what I'm saying is you could have a rage where you could think, I may need that for the Queen charge, but if I can save it, I can actually use that with the LavaLoon. It's not then a wasted spell. However, a jump spell, let's say the Queen goes around the outside, you can't use the jump, I don't know, it's wasted. The rage is not. It's a transitional spell, if that makes sense. Same with a freeze spell. You can use the freeze anywhere. You can use it with the Queen charge to freeze a couple of expos that are maybe locked onto the Queen. Maybe you charge into a single for some reason, you freeze the single. You get the idea, but you could use that on a multi as well with the Lalo. Now, as that Lalo comes in, we've got that momentum down to the south. We've got the slammer reinforcing here to get everything moving through that town hall and to the multi-infernos. Grand Warden's ability is used over the town hall, so whenever you use the Grand Warden's ability, you don't really need too many spells in that area. You might use a haste to get, basically your balloons are in, like, not vulnerable within that time, so power them over the defenses. A haste or a rage is actually pretty good in that situation. The haste is the main spell for the Lalo. The balloons are very slow, so the haste gives them that boost, but they do a lot of damage, so you rarely need the rage unless they are taking out a lot of defenses in an area, and you just need to slam through. Potentially where the Queen is, you combine that rage with the Lalo and with the skeleton spells on top of that. Use them rages initially to power the balloons forward as the lava hounds potentially fly away and leave them vulnerable, but do try and keep the lava hounds obviously in an area where it's protecting the loons, and use the haste to power your loons onto splash damage, multi-infernos, anything like that as well, but obviously the freeze can be useful in that situation as well. What can I say? FC Jonas, maybe we should get him on the channel sometime for a pro interview, but another attack getting it done with the Queen Charge Lalo. Let's kind of finish what we were discussing in terms of spells, but everything should be coming together for this attack, and after this one, I'm going to send you across to a recent video I did on the top 3 Town Hall 12 attacks. However, all of my Town Hall 12 videos are within one playlist on my YouTube homepage. Obviously, select the Town Hall 12 one. So, thinking back to what we've said, Queen is easily drawn into this area of the base. In fact, it's very, very similar to that first attack. Is it even the same base? I believe it is. I scouted all of these and I did not realize that until right now. Let me know in the comments if you realized straight away this is the same base. I mean, this is a big no-no. Maybe it's a little different, I don't know. But this is a big no-no in terms of wars. Obviously, do not use 2 bases the same unless you are changing traps dramatically and trying to second guess and troll your opponent. However, when you know a plan's going to work, just go for it, guys. The Queen blasts this area, takes out all of them defenses we talked about. You know about that now. You know what we should be taking. If you've got any other tips, let me know down below. Swarming that multi-inferno with the balloons, and you will see a haste spell initially to get through that area, through the multis, through them dangerous defenses, and moving forward towards the town hall. So, as we come through there, just waiting initially. Maybe the haste doesn't quite come in yet, it's used now to power to the town hall after the multi, but anywhere where there's splash, that's where you need to be taking them down early. The freeze is used onto the Giga Bomb. It actually does, or the Giga Tesla, it actually does a decent amount of damage to the loons. You could use the freeze wherever. Arguably, you could use the freeze onto the multi. Now, what I did say earlier in the video is that 3 multis are a nightmare. If you're going up against 3 multis, no matter how many times you freeze or haste into a multi, you are taking a lot of damage with your loons. You might, in that case, be able to use a heal spell as long as your balloons are going to be clumped and moving through that base with that fashion we have talked about. So if this video has helped you, be sure to leave a like. Let me know any other tips down below. I've tried to focus on the main points, but like I do with all of my videos, make it simple and absorbable enough that you can take this on board and help with your own gameplay, getting them key points. But if you want to see the top 3 Town Hall 12 attacks right now, be sure to check out this video. It will help you out a lot with them different strategies. But that wraps it up for this one. Until next time, peace out.